Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Northampton County Council meeting of October 19th, 2017 to order. Please rise for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, please be seated. Ms. Zembo, can you call the roll?
Mr. Bennell?
Here.
Mr. Kuzic?
Present.
Mr. Dees?
Here.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Here.
Mr. Geisinger?
Present.
Mr. Kraft?
Here.
Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Vaughn?
Here.
And Mr. Warner?
Here.
All present.
All present this evening. First item is the approval of the minutes of the October 5th, 2017 meeting. Moved by Mr. Werner to approve by acclamation, seconded by Mr. Bennell. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed or abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Mr. Geisinger abstains. Next, we have courtesy of the floor. We did not have anyone signed up. However, if there is anyone that would like to address council this evening, if you would like to come forward, Mr. Moore.
Good evening, Council.
Welcome.
I came back because there's some unfinished business from last time. You had asked me a question. I have some more information to answer your question.
Yeah.
And also some other loose ends. There was a part of the sheet that I handed out that I said I was not going to go over, and I wanted to touch upon that tonight. After I spoke, I did leave, and the executive did address something I brought up regarding the $200,000 TIF, which I understand he did correct.
Yeah.
And I understand that. He also made a comment about the pledges by municipalities, and he indicated there will be no conditions. And I don't want to speak at length to that tonight, but I do want to tell you that that is a very important issue in the townships. Now, he has said I can't control what goes on in the townships. The problem is that because this program is being underfunded, there is turmoil in the townships. I don't really want to go much beyond that to say I attended special meetings last year in December and January in which the township stepped up to the plate and did what Ms. Benzoni asked and pledged funds. They placed a condition simply because they found out that matching funds had not come back the way they always had come back before. And they were led to believe they may actually get no matching on their funds, their pledges last year. So I don't want to speak to that anymore this evening, however. What I do want to speak to is this spreadsheet that I have updated since last time to reflect the $200,000. I made some additional minor changes. And I'd like to point you to the top line. And we've allocated $27.2 million towards open space since instituting the half-mil real estate tax levy, which generates about $3.9 million per year. A total of $44.8 million approximately has been generated by this tax since its inception in 2007. In the 8 years from 2007 to 2014, $23.5 million of the funds collected was allocated to open space. In the 4 years of the current administration, $3.7 million has been allocated total to open space across the 4 years of comparison. That's a 69% reduction on a per-year basis. $0 from the general fund was allocated in 2015, 2016, and 2007. Only $450,000 has been allocated to fund open space. Is that an error? Only $450,000 has been allocated to fund farmland preservation from the general fund during the last 4 years, whereas Maria feels $1 million per year is full funding of the program. And this is old news. I'd like to know what the half mil is being used for, if not for open space, and why it is not rescinded, if not being used for the purpose it was enacted. Telling taxpayers their taxes aren't going up is great, but shouldn't we tell them, what the real story is? Now, you asked about demand, Mr. Cusick.
Yeah.
In 2017, on the sheet that I handed out to the folks that came to the budget meeting, 827 acres of land was qualified for preservation in Northampton County. And we looked back, and over the last 7 years, that is about the average per year. So in that sense, demand doesn't seem to be changing much. It doesn't seem to have decreased. The number of applications you mentioned, that can actually be deceiving. Because back at the time you're talking about, I'm not sure the exact year, you mentioned 10 years.
Yeah.
You know there wasn't much funding at that time. So you had people coming back year after year. And what Maria will tell you, and I understand she will be invited to come next week to the budget meeting, I believe she will tell you, is that you're not seeing many new applications, repeat applications anymore. Now, I mentioned that we had done an EIT study in Plainfield Township. We were asked by our supervisors to look into this. They wanted to know, should we still be funding farmland preservation? Can we use the funds for something else? And I don't want to talk about the something else. What we did is, one of the things we did is we looked across the township and we've determined that we have about 3,200 acres preserved. We've got about 2,300 acres in farms in land that's 50 acres or more per parcel that we believe is eligible for farmland preservation. And then between 25 and 50 acre parcels, we have about 700 acres. So we feel we still have work to do in terms of that, your question. Now, the benefit to taxpayers. Mr. Dietz mentioned this about a year ago, I think in a meeting. He said, what's the benefit to me in wind gap? And I mentioned last time, but you weren't here. Mr. Schlegel, as part of our open space study, the finance, the business administrator for the school district, wrote a nice letter. And in it, he stated that farmland preservation controls residential development in the district, and by doing so, controls and helps stabilize the district's enrollment. We found three developments that were in different stages of approval that were ultimately preserved, and that saved upwards, I believe it was 60 to 70 students from the district. So in that sense, your taxes are benefited if you're a resident of Wind Gap. In my memory is you say you are. I just wanted to point that out. So the reason I'm coming in is I'm looking for the best return for our taxpayers. And given the numbers I recited to you tonight and the fact I've pointed out to you on this funky sheet that I handed out last year that I won't bore you with again, it all starts with the county funding in the budget. And the importance of that is Maria sends out letters usually in October when she gets that preliminary budget. That's what she's at when she's asking the townships to pledge money, and she bases that on the amount funded.
Okay, Mr. Moore, if you could, about a minute or so, if you could just wrap up.
Yeah. So the rest will be regurgitation of what I've told you in the past. I really cannot understand why we're not funding this and getting upwards of a 300% return on a dollar that the county puts into the program. For the county, it's about 100% return to their taxpayers, even if it sits in an account for a year or two, because it wasn't used that year, as opposed to being underfunded and coming and ask the townships for unmatched money, or the county, as Biz said, will step up. Well, if they step up, those are unmatched funds too. It's not a wise expenditure. And I will see you next week. Thank you for your time.
We will look forward to it. Mr. Dietz, you had a comment?
Yeah, just real quick. I'm happy to meet with you, outside and go over some of this. And I've sat down with Mary quite a few times.
I would very much appreciate that.
And just for example, for Plainfield, they only have one farm that's qualifying for a total of 20 acres this year. So if there really is an interest, you really need to go out to the farmers in Plainfield and have them apply in. So there was one that qualified for 20. There was one that backed out in it. And then there was another one that didn't qualify for it, for 72 acres.
As we discussed last time when you weren't here, as was discussed, we had my neighbor adjoining my property had acres that she initially said, I don't want to be involved in preservation. She applied this last year. She was approved. She went through the process. I think she paid for the appraisal, backed out the last second. There's been, as you may be aware, there's tax assessment issues that came up. And some people get wet feet.
No, I agree with that. But so
and it does vary from year to year. And there was one that ended up not qualifying. That was, I think, 50 to 60 acres that pulled out. That was not qualified.
56 they pulled out, and then 72 that didn't qualify.
But we heard that from Maria. We send our own letters out, and we're doing our best to promote preservation. And if you look at the fact that we've preserved about a half of what available land we think we have for preservation, we're not doing badly.
No, I would agree with that, except for even with, saying we underfunded it last year, there's still $265,000 left over from that last year. Now, that granted, that is a buffer in case they have appraisals that come in or estimates that need to go higher.
That's correct.
But we're right on track of funding every farm that comes in and having carryover.
And, well, the one thing, you just give me, if I can respond to that. The one thing on this sheet, this is important. This is an important point that I missed. Last year, we had $950,000 carryover, and it was budgeted $500,000. This year, we have $500,000 budgeted between the new funds and the TIF and the general fund. And we may have, Maria believes she may have $200,000 carryover. In that sense, I think you're going to hear from her when she comes in that it's not being funded properly. And again, the problem is that we're not seeing that if you fund it a little bit over, it just gets matched by a phenomenal return rate, and it sits in that fund until you use it the following year, as opposed to using unmatched dollars you get zero return on. But I'd be happy to talk to you, Mr. Deese.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to point out one other thing that I don't know if you neglected this, but one of the things we did in last year's budget is we created a line item for livable landscapes. And I believe we funded that to the tune of around $350,000, somewhere in there. One of the issues with the environmentally sensitive was we just weren't seeing projects. So we created that line item to give flexibility to the open space program. Now, I was disappointed that the executive in his proposed budget chose not to finance it this year.
The livable landscapes?
The livable landscapes. Now, that's one of the things that I'm going to look at is to see if there's a way we can finance that, because it gave a lot of flexibility to Mr. Cope with some of the projects. That most of it was trail related. But I think that he did an excellent job and explained to us how that money was used this year.
Yeah, as you can tell, farmland preservation is my passion.
I understand.
And I did not put down as new funds because I believe those were transferred in from environmentally sensitive. So I don't believe those were new funds last year, the 300 and some thousand.
But I just wanted to let you know that
that's a great program. One of the frustrations, I mean, that was brought up as well as shale money, whatever, along the way, people trying to find money for preservation. My problem is I don't understand why it's not coming straight from the tax levy. From $1 million municipal parks down to $250. Why didn't you just take the $750? Why didn't he just take the $750, put it in the preservation? And I really wouldn't have much of an argument. You'd still be slightly underfunded, but you'd be pretty much right on target. All you had to do was say, take it from there. Now that the amendments that amendments passed now, mandatory to be spent, put it over here.
Okay.
I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Mr.
Appreciate your passion.
Thank you, Mr. Deese.
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to address council this evening? Sir, if you could state your name and address, please.
Good evening. Julian Fremadi, 3202 Blue Mountain Lane. Good to be back, and thank you for the opportunity. I actually had prepared some remarks, but I didn't print them out. I wanted to start with a question that I left here, you guys, last time, with the hope that you guys would have an update as far as the DLR and their projects. So I wanted to bring that up and kind of like start with that question. Do you guys have an update on, where we stand with that?
We received a handout from the county executive. He's not here this evening, but the director of administration gave us some preliminary concepts, and there's 7 options that are presented on this list. And if you want a copy, you're certainly welcome to it.
I appreciate it. Actually, I was able to get a hold of a copy of that last night.
Okay.
But thank you. So we're going to have a full report, it seems like, soon, or?
It is my understanding as soon as the full report is done, there'll be a presentation here before council and a recommendation will be made. It's my understanding that the executive has made some, or has expressed some preliminary thoughts with how he wants, what direction he wants to go in.
I see. Would you be able to share those? Or?
Well, I can share with you that I wasn't here. I had to leave early from the meeting yesterday, but Mr. Phillips is our capital projects coordinator.
Well, actually, it wasn't discussed at the capital projects, but the executive said, and Kathy could correct me if I'm wrong, but that the full report will be ready this Friday or Monday at the latest.
Any indication which way they were leaning towards to?
Well, I think, no, I couldn't say that.
Okay.
I'm not in a position to
All right.
say that.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, if I may.
Certainly,
Can I-
Mr. Warner.
Mr. Phillips.
I am, thank you.
If you did have a copy of that sheet, which you received, the scales, it shows you
Yeah,
where
No,
the,
I was,
it
my
shows-
question was more from the,
from the executives.
Yeah, from Mr. Brown.
We haven't heard anything from the executive, but as far as council goes, we saw it for the first time yesterday. And we reviewed it, and it's a very general statement about what was done.
Mhm.
And I don't believe anywhere in there it said anything about building anywhere. What it did talk about was renovation, and there's more in there. You can actually read it off the
Right.
chart.
Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, and one thing, to be perfectly honest, when I looked at that and I did ask questions to the executive, there was terminology in the options that I didn't understand what that meant. And he said that because there was some ambiguity on that, he wasn't comfortable talking about it either, and we would have to wait for the full report to come out, because they have that. So that's why I'm really being cautious.
No, fair enough.
Because I'm reading it, like if there's terms on there, I don't know what it means.
And-
I'm not in a position to explain to anybody else what it means,
fair
because I don't
enough.
know either.
Fair enough. And we don't need to go into more details, I guess. Just a couple of updates, if you, although I'm pretty sure you guys are aware, I mean, we have media here actually being covered, WFMZ, but it seems like we did have a change of heart from Mr. Brown, which is great to hear, Last time around, 2 weeks ago, it seemed like this was all politics. Now, if Mr. Brown was here, actually, I would have asked him that question, is it politics now? But it was nice of him to show last Sunday as well in the Q&A and participate, and we had you, Mr. Phillips, as well. So it was great to get everybody, there. Great presence as far as the community, both Lower Nazareth, Upper Nazareth. So I guess the movement is still ongoing. Last night, a bunch of us also attended the town meeting, and everybody seems to be aware of what's going on. We do have a feeling there could be ways still around to bypass, supervisor zoning changes and all that. So we're going to try to stay on top of that. That's our commitment, as a community. We continue to get more petitions. Mr. Phillips, just wanted last time around when I was here, and I'll take another minute, I was talking about financing, and the money, and, why don't we buy the land and all that. So just with the numbers that are public out there, and as Mr. Brown actually mentioned last Sunday, $6 million per year, 4 years, $24 million. But I did some other calculations. But even if you use just the $6 million, for 30 years, that's $180 million. So when I was saying last time around, without actually running any numbers, although I did run some numbers once I went home that evening, and I came to $161.5 million, based on the numbers published. So when I was saying this project can be self-financed, whatever it may be, whatever it could be, or renovation, I think, and I'm just using the numbers that are public, right? 100.778 currently per inmate per day, compared to the average in Pennsylvania, which is $78.30.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to,
And you came up to like 6 million, right? Because I run the same
and that
numbers.
is, I mean, I came up to be honest with you, 5.4 million.
That's about right.
But again, I used 500 inmates. I don't know the exact number, so I just ballparked it at that. And the numbers we were hearing for the new jail were between 120 to 130. So I still believe whether it's a new jail or renovation, whatever it could cost, if the savings are what DLR says or what they should be, it should be self-financed. So I hope whatever happens, right? First of all, hopefully it's not in Graysdale. That's really my biggest thing. And I had some pictures. I have pictures, actually, what the place looks like. But, even from a financing and tax perspective, because that's another concern, I think it should be self-financed based on the savings, as long as, we get them, I guess. So
All right.
that's all I had.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I was just going to ask if everybody that is here for no jail at Graysdale.
Sir,
stand
you're
up.
supposed to address
Oh, I'm sorry.
council. If there is anyone else that would like to address council, they're certainly welcome to come up and do so. Okay?
Oh, okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council? Ma'am, if you could state your name and address, please. Thank you.
Christine Woodmansee, 2173 Eagles Landing Drive, Nazareth.
Thank you.
PA. I just have more petitions to give you.
Yeah, we'll take those. Oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to address? Sir, if you could just state your name and address, please.
Good evening, James Cunningham, 2155 Eagles Landing Drive. On that hypothetical that you were just showing with the different colors and everything, does it have specifics
You can have
for
it.
what the what the actual locations are on that from the DLR? Is that something that's going to be within the
only
report?
specific locations mentioned on this are the existing site and the West Easton site.
The existing site and the West Easton site.
Here and West Easton.
So what are the other ones? Are they going to be named in the report that comes out from DLR?
I do not know because I don't have that information.
But isn't that like for the opportunity for 7 different locations?
There are.
Or there's only two. There's only 2. 7 different options
There are
for
options,
2
yes.
different locations. All right. Thank you. Well, thank you for those who attended this past weekend at Tuscus Park. There was just one other thing that was brought to our attention. Last night at Upper Nazareth Township meeting, someone brought the attention of a new law that was just passed by the state Senate, H221. We did a little research on it last night. It's like the revamping and reusing of jails that are like over 100 years old to go ahead and actually be reused and revamped to be used for courthouse space and things like that. It just seems like that comes at a pretty convenient time for something like this that's going on here.
Is there any money involved?
In Nazareth. Huh?
I'm serious. Is there any money that we could get from the state
Well, I
to
can
do
answer that.
Mr. Kraft?
We'd love to.
It is basically a law that allows for the P3 to build a jail in a greenfield or an existing jail. It was put into the state Senate in July and passed by the urging of the county executive, and it was came out of committee yesterday on the House floor and was passed in the House. It'll be signed. It applies to counties that have exactly the amount of people that we have. The only other county that it applies to is Erie, and it's part of the law now. So you can use a P3 to build a prison, which is a public-private partnership where they come and build it, and similar to our bridge deal. And that's all I know. That's what you're referring to.
Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you for going ahead. I'll put it this way. I know enough of it to be dangerous. It was brought up by someone at the Upper Nazareth Township meeting last night, and so we just did a little homework when we went home and pecked on the computer to see exactly what it was, and it pretty much seems like it's just pretty much custom fit for Northampton County, especially referring to anybody that has a jail over 100 years old.
It was exactly fit with population and age of jail, and only Erie and
Okay.
it only applies to 2 counties in the state.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kraft. I think that's everything. Thank you.
All right.
May I say something?
Certainly, Mrs. Ferraro.
I did send a letter because I had a previous commitment on Sunday, and I did send a letter, an email, to let you know why I wasn't there. But I have stated my thoughts on this prison for a long time, from my days as an Upper Nazareth Township supervisor, and they wanted to put a gun range at Graysdale, and we fought that one. I fought to keep Graysdale when it went on the auction block, and I will fight to the end to make sure no jail is up at Graysdale. So know that you have my vote.
Thank you. So I guess one last thing. So how many seats are actually up right now besides the executive
5.
council?
There are
5. Okay. And how many individuals are running? I just want to know.
5.
5.
4 sitting.
4 sitting.
4 sitting here, and then, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to go ahead, just let some people be aware, because many people that I've spoken to just were just thinking that, oh, it's only one spot you're going for besides the county executive. And I just said, no. I just wanted to have it for the record so that everybody
Okay.
knows. But thank you very much. Thank you for your clarification on it, Mr. Kraft.
That's just made news. Is there anyone else who would like to address council? Sir, if you could state your name and address, please.
Eric Rosenthal, 2159 Ingalls Landing Drive. I just moved to the area 3.5 weeks ago, and I wanted to thank you all for your service. I learned a lot about how the county council functions from this Graysdale situation, And I came here just to express my opposition to building a jail at Graysdale, and I won't take any more of your time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to address council this evening? Sir, state your name and address, please.
My name is Ryan Woodmansee, 2173 Eagles Landing Drive. I just wanted to address council. You know, I mean, we came here 2 weeks ago looking for answers, really. And again...
We didn't have many.
That was apparent. So, again, after we left here, we did a lot of research, a lot of digging, a lot of old videos. We saw the presentation that Director Keene gave on the web. And it was pretty disheartening to see, you know, council kind of reacting to his presentation. You know, there was a lot of innuendos of you know, where are we going to build this, and we know where to build it. I won't point at fingers here at council members, but, you know, I just want to make sure that everybody understands that, you know, I think before, a lot of people weren't paying attention here, right? I'll admit that as a town resident of Nazareth, that we weren't paying attention to how the county works, you know, how the government works, really, how the council works. But, you know, after this, and after a lot of different, you know, things that have come up during this investigation, I can guarantee you that it won't stop here. You know, the elections will be coming up in November, but we won't, you know, we'll be here at every meeting. We'll be watching on the, you know, if I can't see a meeting, I'll be watching on the web and making sure that we're paying attention. Because, again, I mean, obviously, there had to be some eyebrows raised when County Executive Brown signed the order to put the DLR group without putting out for public bid, right? I mean, we can admit to that.
Well, I think there was some concerns, and I stated mine publicly at the time.
I have your quote. But also, I mean, from that point, when, you know, Councilman Phillips, you stated last week or 2 weeks ago that you didn't want to micromanage the process, right? Mm-hmm. But it looked like there was no management at all from council. So, I mean, nobody checked in.
To step in there, you know, the county executive has the right to enter any contract under $100,000 with our approval.
Yes.
You realize that, right? And it was below $100,000, so we didn't have any say whether we wanted to approve it or not.
That's not what I said. I get that.
That's a legislative code. I mean, he should have went to
right.
two. He should have got two bidders. I understand that.
Right?
I understand
so
what we talked about because he only had one bid.
When we came here 2 weeks ago, no one knew anything.
We didn't.
On the council.
They didn't.
Well, why not?
Because the report wasn't done yet.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't you follow up?
Well, how would we if there's no report?
Because DLR Group has been here every month since July.
Group
but they've never been before us.
They've never been here.
But
we budgeted money for the study last year.
Okay.
But we had not received any information from them since we received this.
But nobody
handout.
knew when this report was going to be published. Any information?
We received nothing as to what the timeline was.
Well,
Mr.
yeah,
Phillips,
we knew it was going to be about 3 months, and that's about what it's going to be.
Okay. All I'm saying is there seems to be a lot of disconnect here, right? So, you know, Mr. Cusack, you seem to have different ideas than Mr. Phillips has.
That's
Right. So that's all I'm saying is that, you know, we expect, I think, a little bit better out of our council members, especially when it's this sensitive of a subject. When you're talking about possibly building a prison at obviously an area that's sensitive, right in the middle of a public area where a residential community. Okay? I just wanted to make that clear, you know, because I know there's been obviously a lot of fodder about it, a lot of discussion, so.
all right.
Appreciate your time. Okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to address council, ma'am?
2160 Eagles Landing, Nazareth. Last week, Kelly Schreier. Thank you. Last week I came here asking for transparency. I've watched the video of September 14th last year in its entirety. I believe your quote was, "We can get this through with political will." Some of the comments, and I have the timestamp on all the comments, are quite disheartening. I believe there was a comment also in there that talked about hiring a lawyer, someone who someone else has been up against, who Nazareth wouldn't want to go up against, and no other person would want to go up against. Also, Mr. Warner, I appreciated your question on the video. You had discussed with Director Keene, you asked the question, what is the benefit of how are we going to sell this site to a community? Director Keene's answer was, well, there's 1,000 people in and out of this prison every single day. So, therefore, isn't it obvious? They'll be visiting restaurants. What I have to say is, in our small community, what you're talking about is on Penn Allen, a neighborhood. 1,000 cars going up and down a 2-lane street just to visit the Dunkin' Donuts. I'm strongly opposed to that. And secondly, I was just disappointed after I watched the video and watched all of your reactions last week. You seemed to know nothing and seemed to take no responsibility for any of the comments that were made last year. And it was disheartening. I'm not going to lie. I appreciate all of your service. I know it's not a hard job. I'm not affiliated with any form of party. But just to let you know, we've all seen the video and we're upset about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to address council? Okay, there being none, we will move then into confirmation of appointments. At this time, I'll call on Mr. Bennell to introduce the resolution.
Northampton County Council with the following. Sorry, Linda. Resolved by the Northampton County Council that the following individuals shall be confirmed in their appointments, reappointments as indicated hereafter. Area Agency on Aging Advisory Council, the appointment of Joan Good, 2285 South Delaware Drive of Easton, Pennsylvania, term to expire July 1st of 2019. And Mary Jane Long, 27 Glenmore Circle, Easton, Pennsylvania, term to expire June 30th of 2020. There's a new appointment of Eileen Siegel of 2701 Liberty Street, also of Easton, and that term to expire July 1st of 2019. For Children, Youth, and Families Advisory Board, Tina Kickline of 507 Penargil Street in Penargil, Pennsylvania, term to expire November 1st, 2019. Drug and Alcohol Advisory Board, appointment of Elizabeth Hayward, 227 West Greenwich Street in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, term to expire June 30th of 2019. And the Mental Health, Early Intervention, and Developmental Programs Advisory Board, the appointment of Daniel Reese of 2032 Siegfried Street in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, that term to expire October 19th of 2020. Okay. And if I can ask if any of those individuals are here tonight.
Please stand up.
Are you Ms. Kickline?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any discussion over these appointments? Well, again, thank you. These are high-paid positions, and we appreciate your volunteering for them. Ms. Zembo, can we call for the vote?
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Dietz?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously. Next item is the Controller's Report. Mr. Barron, you had something for us this evening?
Good evening, Council. As it's budget time, I wanted to revisit two issues and then point out one additional issue that I sort of glazed over because of the questions that went back and forth in the P-card audit that I think will have an impact and would be important to the budget. The first issue I'd like to talk about, I was before you, and I know Mr. Herlinger sent me an email back in June trying to pull together information related to Airbnb. And collecting revenue from Airbnb. To date, the county has not engaged Airbnb on the hotel tax, and it's sort of evolving. Airbnb has entered an agreement with the state of Pennsylvania. What Council may not know about that agreement is that it does not allow for an itemized list or anything that is auditable from Airbnb. So basically, when a room is rented on Airbnb within the state of Pennsylvania, we're taking it on faith that Airbnb is actually taking the taxes being collected and then sent in. And that is something that I think the county needs to not allow to happen, because on the lower levels, like in the cities, you have certain folks who are purchasing pieces of property, running afoul of zoning and setting them up as sort of these hybrid quasi-hotels. It's gotten so crazy that hotels that do pay us hotel tax, that are collecting hotel tax, are now advertising on Airbnb to get people to come to their legitimate hotels. And that presents an accounting problem for them, because when you rent a room on Airbnb for that $200 and you don't collect the taxes, what's happening is those hotels will now be responsible for paying those taxes, because if you put a room on Airbnb for $200, that's the flat room rate. It's not $179 plus fees. So when we go into audit, it's a $200 room rate, and we're expecting that return on that hotel room for the night. So there's going to be a lot of changes coming around in the new year. I know of 3 hotels who are now advertising on Airbnb that I went out to look, because the person who told me, I didn't believe him, and I was shocked. So the county really needs to push that forward into the new year. Not only will it be a stream of revenue, but there are people, like there's an issue in Bethlehem right now, and when I took this issue to Mr. Hunter, he was very responsive. The people were given information, and they were approved to pay their hotel tax to the county, and I had to be very clear with them that this didn't mean that I was saying it was okay for them to operate a hotel in the city of Bethlehem, or anybody at the county was saying that. There were still local zoning laws that they needed to comply with. And this shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, because when the Pope visited Philadelphia, this was a huge issue for the city of Philadelphia. People setting up Airbnbs, leaving town and renting rooms to folks who wanted to see the Pope. So that was the first piece of information. Mr. Hurlinger has been kind enough to include me, and I've shared information I've received from the city of Philadelphia, who has dealt with this issue. And again, with the state entering that agreement, the state is now collecting and we are not. So I wanted to make council aware of that.
Yeah, just on that issue, before you move on, a couple months ago, I spoke with Tom Muller, the Lehigh County executive, and he had indicated that they were going to be collecting it. Are they over there? And if so, what do you know?
It was still in limbo at this point. We had our controllers conference back in late September, and I asked Glenn Eckert about this, and they didn't really have any resolve yet. Part of our group, we share a lot of this information amongst county controllers. So there are several counties who are looking at this. Sandy Graffius in Berks, Michelle in Luzerne, as well as Glenn Eckert in Lehigh County. Christy Joy in Schuylkill County, I think, has looked at it, but I don't know that there are any hotels in Schuylkill County. It's a little joke. Sorry.
Ouch.
So when Christy watches the meeting, he'll zing me back, I'm sure. So that being the case, there's a lot of movement on this at the local level for the counties that do assess and collect hotel room tax. And I can't say how much it's going to be. It could be, 1 year 5 figures, 1 year it could be 4, 1 year it could be 6, depending on the activity. And if we have a big event come into the area where people are renting rooms, you never know what could happen. The city of Philadelphia was quite surprised at the rates for rooms with the revenue they were missing, along with how people were running afoul of zoning.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Any other questions on that issue? No.
The second issue is, I know council allocated money, I think in this budget year, to look over and review the administrative code. And I know that there is, I guess there's discussion of a home rule charter study and all of that. And whatever council does with that, I'm not going to speak on that or render an opinion, because the controller's office exists under the county code. It exists under the home rule charter. It'll exist probably 100 years beyond me. My concern is that we look at the administrative code seriously, because the home rule charter process takes a while. It's, you're looking at, 3-4 years until anything happens, and we're going to have serious issues and serious problems within that time frame. And we've tested the limits of some of those things, and any administrative code that still refers to typewriters, we really, really need to think about that being relevant to today.
I haven't heard IT called data processing in quite some time, too. So.
Hold on, wait, let me get my punch card out from my computer. That's the other thing. And finally, in the budget, one of the things, and this could not have been contemplated when we were looking at the P-card audit and talking about potential changes to staff travel. One of the proposals and the solutions that the administration has put forward is to take the GSA rates for travel and meal reimbursement, which I think is a firm, solid plan, because if we take those rates and they change, we update ourselves with the times as they change. However, our current rate of $36 a day for meals would go up to $59 a day. Now, taking that out, that's $23 per person per day. Taking that out over all of the departments and all the people who have mandatory travel, that could be a significant amount of money. So I don't know I know when we put our budget together back in June, we weren't thinking about that, because we do have, a few conference days put into our budget because we have to get our continuing education. I know our budget didn't consider that. I think we'll still be okay because we're very frugal elsewise. But throughout the entire county, that could be a significant problem that council will either have to deal with as a budget amendment, or maybe wants to deal with it now and ask those questions just to see what the projections would look like. And I'm only pointing this out because people will say, if these things come up, well, where was the controller? He did this P-card audit. I didn't want to miss it in everything that was talked about yesterday, and it was on my list of things to say, and I didn't get to say it.
No, that's good. I mean, that number is probably too high. I mean, we could probably have some lobster dinners for that price.
I mean, and I'm not saying
that
it's
might be something to consider.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's. I don't know if it's too high. I mean, my kids eat a lot at restaurants, and
hey, Steve,
I always pay a lot. So
is that $59 a day for the whole day?
It is for the whole day. So it's 3 meals. It's broken down per each meal, but it's $59 total per day. It's not per meal.
Those are those crayfish lobster he's talking about.
Yeah. And if you're traveling to Maine, lobster is cheaper.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Sorry.
Sorry about that.
And that's all I have for council tonight. If
Anything
there's any other
else
questions.
for the controller?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
County Executive's report. Mr. Brown is not here. Ms. Allen, did you have a report?
Just to clarify Mr. Barron's conundrum, I guess you could call it, we never said we were changing to the GSA. We said we would take them into consideration when looking at the policy. So we are not planning on doing that. So I think that the budget should be fine with everybody's travel, and Mr. Barron should be fine also. Thank you.
Okay. Would you mind staying there for a moment? Are we, when we look into our travels, because obviously there's a lot of training going on, a lot of trips, we've had this discussion before. Are we taking advantage of all the discounts that we have as a government?
Yes, we do.
And who's in charge of that?
We look into it as administration and as HR. Both departments are looking at the different
Is there a person that's
ones.
overseeing, looking into specifically the discounts that are given to government agencies?
A lot of them is set through CCAP. When we do use the CCAP ones.
That's fine.
Okay, so
Are we
that's
going
where-
into Chicago
and we work
this year,
with
or is there anything outside?
CCAP. I don't know the answer to that question. We'll see where the
All right, just thought I'd ask.
different conventions are being held.
I know they are. It's about that
Okay.
time, so I want to keep a leg up on that one this time.
No worries.
Okay.
Anything
Yeah.
else?
No, I'll just say, to respond to that, Mr. Warner, the CCAP rates, the key is you have to respond within a certain
time.
window.
Amount of time. And most
Okay.
conventions are that way. No matter what conventions you're going to, you have an early bird rate. So
And it's a package,
we always
correct?
try to get
Yeah.
into it.
Usually
Yes.
have the package, so. Okay.
Anything else from
Any
Ms.
other
Allen?
questions?
No? Okay, well then,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much. Then we will move into old business. First item is public hearing on the ordinance entitled, an ordinance of the County of Northampton at Easton, Pennsylvania, authorizing the Northampton County Board of Elections to submit a ballot question to the electors of Northampton County for the purpose of electing a government study commission to consider the repeal of the Northampton County Home Rule Charter, the advisability of the adoption of an optional form of government, or to continue with the present Northampton County Home Rule Charter. This ordinance was introduced by Mr. Phillips and Mr. Werner at the October 5th meeting. Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at this meeting. Okay, so at this time, I'd like to conduct the public hearing with regards to the ordinance. Is there anyone that would like to address council regarding this ordinance? Okay, there being none, we will move into members of council. Mr. Phillips, you had...
I would like to make a motion that we have an amendment to it. We had a thought that this would be a 9-month process, and after further review of the state law of Home Rule Charters, Section 2921, it says, the Government Study Commission shall report its findings and recommendations to citizens of the municipality within 9 months from the date of the election. That's where we got the 9 months. Except that it shall be permitted an additional 9 months if elected to prepare and submit a proposed Home Rule Charter, and an additional 2 months if it chooses to elect a municipal council by districts. So I think that I'd like to change this to from 9 months to 18 months.
Okay, that's under the plain English version section of the ordinance?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Phillips has made a motion to amend the ordinance under the plain English version to increase the amount of time from 9 months to 18. Okay, is there a second for the motion? Okay, it's seconded by Mr. Bennell. Okay, so now we need a discussion on the amendment. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Just ask Mr.
So you said an additional 9 months, but there was also, was there 2 months? Should it be 20?
And the 2 months was if you were changing to a district like we have right now. Thank you for bringing that up. My thought was that since we already have the districts already settled, we wouldn't be spending that 2 months for that. So we would need, when you look at the timeline that they give you, you're really about a 9 month before you have a product. So maybe 12 months before you have a product. So between 9 and 12 months. So you wouldn't be ready there. But I think the 18 months would be sufficient because we don't have to figure out the districting.
Right. Okay. That's it.
Just, Mr. Lauer, any concerns about the amendment to 18 months? Is that acceptable under the law?
Well, the purpose of the plain English version is to explain to the public what they're voting on. And I think, frankly, either one is appropriate. You do have 9 months, but it can be extended to 18 months. So I think adding it the way Mr. Phillips proposes is fine. I don't think there's any legal impediment to that.
Okay.
And maybe you could say within 9 months unless extended, or words to that effect. But I mean, either way is fine.
I would. My motion is at 18 months.
I think that's much simpler than saying if that, then that. You get into all these. I don't want to give. Yeah, I don't want a flow chart in plain English version. Any other discussion on the amendment to move this from 9 to 18 months? Okay, then Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Deeth?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
And Mr. Kraft?
No.
Passes by a vote of 8-1.
Okay, so the amendment passes by a vote of 8-1. Okay, so now we will move into the discussion of the ordinance as amended. Mr. Geisinger, you had a question?
No, I was going to propose another amendment. So,
okay.
My concern, Mr. President, is with the fact that the ordinance as it stands discusses holding this election during the primary election.
Correct.
Not during the general election. And why did we come back to that versus the general? Why are we recommending it be held in the primary where there will be a 30% of the population that doesn't have a opportunity to vote?
Actually they will. This is something where an independent can vote in the primary on this particular ballot. Yes, in primary elections, an independent can vote.
Right, but they'll be. I mean, most of the time they've been programmed. Oh, I can't go out anyway. I guess that's my concern, that they're going to without the proper advertisement and the proper education on it. They won't think to come out because they normally go, well, I can't vote anyway. So that's my concern.
Yeah, I would disagree. I think this is going to be well advertised. I mean, there's already been an article in the newspaper about it. So, I think most of the voters are pretty keyed into what we're going to propose. It will be well advertised, and I'm sure the media will cover it quite well. Mrs. Ferraro?
And along that same line, suppose the people who want to run for this study commission are independent or another party, will they be able to vote in the primary?
Absolutely.
And will they be able to run in the primary? Will their name be on the ballot in the primary?
Absolutely. All they need to do is get, 250 signatures? I'm not sure. Don't quote me on the...
200.
200? So anyone who's libertarian, vegetarian, Republican, Democrat is welcome to run, vote, and I would welcome anybody.
When they get their signatures, the 200 signatures, they cannot have stated their party affiliation on the form.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So it's just 200 electors.
200 electors.
Okay.
It is nonpartisan.
It'll be a nonpartisan 200 electors, regardless of party.
Regardless of party.
Okay.
Well, I think
that's
actually,
going to take some educating.
I think actually the Democrats and Republicans run around with their petitions for the Democrats and Republicans, and after they put in all their forms, then the independents can come out and they run their forms around with people who did not sign the other ones to get on the ballot. That's how it's always worked.
Well, that's for a general election where you have...
this is for a primary election.
I know what I mean by that. I'm sorry. When you have a regular primary election, that's correct because of the way the process works, because the elector has to be a member of the party to which you are nominated.
Right, but there
is no party.
There is no part. This is completely this is something that is probably foreign to everybody. It is a completely nonpartisan. If this were to pass, the election of the study commission would be completely nonpartisan. So there'll be no indication of what party somebody is or, what their, political affiliation will be on the ballot. So, yeah, I mean, there's some municipalities in other states that have these types of elections. So it would be a unique experience here in Northampton County.
Well, we did it once before.
Yeah. I was not eligible to vote at the time.
40 years ago, you weren't eligible to vote? I missed it by 2 years.
That's 78?
No, it was 76.
76.
More years. Yeah.
I remember it well. And all the controversy that went with it.
Yeah. I remember Jim Hemstreet talking about it to me a long time ago.
And I remember Judge Moran thanking me very much when we had our first Republican majority in 2001, saying they always said it couldn't be done.
Well, okay.
But anyway, that's
all the reason to do a study.
Well, so yeah, the fact that it's in the primary is really irrelevant. It's just an election that's nonpartisan.
I respect your comment, Mr. President. I wholeheartedly disagree, though. I do not think you can spend enough money, educate people enough, put enough articles in enough places to change what 30% of the people just accept as truth, that they don't have an opportunity to go to the ballot box in the primary. So-
I agree with Mr. Geisinger.
Well, I would suggest you make an amendment to see if there's an agreement on that. I mean, my take is, I don't think that's going to be an issue. I'd like to see it in the primary. But, you know, if you make a motion, we'll see how that would...
I'm willing to make a motion to amend the document to say, to replace the date of May 15th, 2018 with November 6th, 2018, which would be the general election date.
And I'll second that motion.
All right.
All right. Any further discussion on that motion?
Well, I think it'll be fine in the primary, and I think, first of all, the 9 candidates that will be running for, or more that will be running for it, will be driving up, getting people out to vote. So they may be an independent, and they'll be hammering out getting independents to come out and vote in the primary for or Republicans or Democrats or any other party affiliation with it. And it's, you know, typically those I think that are more active into the political arena or follow politics throughout all the municipalities are the ones that we really want to be active in the study would be the ones that generally vote in every primary and general election anyway.
Yeah, those are all.
May I respectfully disagree with Mr. Dietz. I think we have had years and years and years of I can only vote Republican or Democrat in a primary, and I don't know what the hurry is. Why can't this be put off until November?
I guess I have faith in our media that they'll do an adequate job.
You have faith in the media? It doesn't exist anymore. Sorry, guys, but it doesn't exist anymore.
Any other comments on the motion to amend, Mr. Bennell?
I have to agree. I think in a general election it would be better. You know, we've all, because we're here, we've all run campaigns, we've all worked the polls, and you know, this coming election, we'll be lucky if we get 20% of the people coming out. Primaries are usually just party-driven, which is a shame. And unfortunately, people, unless it's, and I commend you, you know, all the people who came here tonight, hey, keep coming. I think it's great when we see the seats are full. Yeah. It's just a shame that people don't get engaged unless they're political junkies like us, or if there's something happening that affect them. And it's just, I think, just the nature of people. I mean, we get bombarded with negative media, so a lot of people turn it out. So people aren't going to be paying attention, I think, in the primary. So I do agree with a general election. I think you're going to get a better outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think just your comment about people
Mr. Dietz and then Mr. Vaughn.
People get involved when it affects them, and this will affect them. So I think they'll get involved.
Mr. Vaughn?
Mr. Dietz, I'd like to respectfully disagree with you on trusting the media. I think the turnout in the general election is far greater than the primary. Like Mr. Bennell says, they're primarily partisan-driven primaries, and I just don't think that the word is going to get out enough to encourage that many people to participate in actually evaluating this and actually getting involved on this commission. So I actually would support the amendment.
So call for the vote.
Any other comments on the amendments? Okay, there being none, Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
No.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
No.
Mr. Dietz?
No.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
No.
And Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 5 to 4.
Okay, so the amendment passes. We will amend May 15th to November 6th, 2018. All right, any other discussion on this?
Well, you ready to call the vote to see?
Well,
what
I'm waiting. Now it's discussion on as amended, or if there's any other amendments on the proposal. Mr. Phillips?
I don't have any more amendments, and I'm not. I think, you know, the moving it to November is not, you know, a big consequence. I mean, I think I'm happy with that. That's fine. Whenever we get in discussion, I get in a discussion all the time with people on things that they would like to get changed or see refined on the home rule charter. You really start to get into the laundry list. And the problem with the laundry list is that you would have to keep taking those, you know, month after month, and you don't really see the whole picture. It's sort of, in a way, the problem we have with the admin code. You know, we're really reluctant to go in and change Chapter 13 for procurement because where it touches everybody else, all the other areas. And I think that this is a time to look at the Home Rule Charter as a whole, with people that are concerned enough that they're going to volunteer their time to do this. And I think that it will study it, and it will resolve these issues. There's always going to be issues. It's not going to be perfect even after we go through the refinement, but I'm anticipating that it'll be better than what we have right now. So I'm really endorsing it.
Any other comments, Mrs. Ferraro?
I'll tell you, I am very uncomfortable with the fact that this study group goes out, that anyone can run for this, that there's no real rules or anything, any qualifications that they have to have. I just feel maybe we don't need a whole charter study commission. I think we need a group of people who have actually worked in county government for years. For example, a Frank Flisser, a Jerry Seifert, people who have really been loved and enjoyed county government, and have them come up with a ruling and reviewing of the charter. I just think we're opening ourselves up. I think this could be an interim solution, and that's why I just don't feel really comfortable supporting this. I'm not even sure yet how I'm going to vote, but I'm not comfortable with throwing this out. I kind of liken it to Graysdale when they wanted to put it on the auction block. And we said, let's bring in a management company. Well, after a lot of fuss and commotion, we finally ended up with a management company, and let's see how that goes. So that's kind of the same way I'm looking at this home rule study, home rule charter business. I think we need to get, that would be my first choice. Maybe I'll vote for this. I still am so torn. So that's my comment.
Okay. Mr. Dietz and then Mr. Kraft.
Well, I guess I disagree with needing any kind of certification. I mean, we all ran for the office we're in, and we're running the county budget without a requirement for it.
Look at the mess we're in.
Well, we have a right to be thrown out.
What's that?
We always have the right to be thrown out.
Yeah, and we also have the right to throw out what they come back with. So if we get people that don't put any effort into it, and it comes back as junk, we can say that it's not, it's nothing. We can stick with what we're having. So people run for all kinds of offices.
May I also say, are we going to have a budget for these people? For this,
should.
We're going to need to have some kind of a substantial budget for them.
Well, I think we had a discussion that actually it doesn't have to be a substantial budget.
It should be.
Yeah, I can answer that. That was previous. That issue was raised. Now, seeing as how the election is in, if this were to pass, I don't believe we would have to allocate much for next year, because by the time this thing would be certified, you're looking at early December. Mm-hmm. So this would be something to consider for the 2019 budget. And at that time, what would happen is the 9 people who would be elected would come before us, and they would, if the most expensive course of action would be if they would want to hire a consultant. So, and even if they would have to come before council and make a request for the amount of money that they would want to spend. So council would still have some say into how much would be spent by an elected commission. Mr. Phillips, Mr. Kraft, did you?
Yeah, I have a ton of questions.
Okay.
I have questions for the author of this. Number one, you say you talk to people all the time. They talk about the home rule charter's got to be things, you heard people come up tonight. They don't pay attention to county government. I can't see an appetite from the public to do a home rule charter study again. All right. So, what is the genesis for you, the author of this? What part of the home rule charter are you looking to change? What was the thing that the catalyst that got you to do this?
Well, I'm not going to tell you exactly. I mean, there were things when we were going through the other day, the qualifications for the controller, the employment of different people. I've always gotten questions about, why do we have an appointed sheriff, not an elected sheriff? Why do we have an elected controller, not an appointed controller, like other counties? That's what I'm saying, that the laundry list is very big. And that's what I'm trying to do, is not to go through and make piecemeal changes, but to change it, holistically. Look at the whole picture. That's really what I want to get done.
So you're not going to point to the one thing that, like, I know the one thing was term limits. You started with term limits, a national thing on term limits, and you wanted to do it to the county executive. That was the first thing that came up. You want a two-term limit, a two-term limit on the county executive. And then you were shot down on that, and then you brought up this home rule charter study to change it the way you want it to be changed. And I really don't, I think this is a complete waste of time, waste of money. The home rule charter has been here for 40 years, it's been running. The problems that you're citing are in the administrative code, not the home rule charter. I mean, tell me what part of this, if you read the home rule charter and you understand the history of it, you know why the sheriff's appointed. You know why the people are appointed instead of having row officers. That's been hashed out. That's why they went the home rule charter. I mean, if you read the papers that they did in 1976, the whole study spelled out why they went that way, what they did it for. So what in the home rule charter specifically is an error to run this government that you're looking to change?
I went through them. I mean,
I'm not telling you because you act like a 7-year-old. I'm not telling you because I don't want to tell you.
I think I'll try to answer that.
No, I don't. I'm not asking you.
Okay.
I'm asking the author of the bill here. Why?
I'm telling you what I'm saying. I'm not. There's a list. Every time you talk to people, there's a number of things.
I don't know what kind of people you talk to, but I talk to people every day too, and the home rule charter does not come up unless you bring it up.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you either. All right. The administrative code is lacking. You said you don't have the, political will or whatever it is to fix the administrative code, although we set money aside to do it for the different sections. That's really what's wrong with this county running properly. Everything that happened because of the administrative code. We turned around, we sued the executive sues us. They went for Nazareth Ambulance to get rid of it with some crappy bid, and we had 3 choices, and we took the choice that was Nazareth Ambulance and not the other one who went out of business. I mean, they were all things of the administrative code, not the home rule charter. So, I think you're just grandstanding. You're trying to deflect on whatever other nonsense is going on. It's a political year. What am I doing?
Hey, sir.
It's an election year. It's a lame duck council.
Yeah.
Put this off until next year. If you're here, vote for it. Let's do a home rule charter. So it's not going to hurt anything because it's not going to be till next November anyway. I mean, why are we doing this?
I can't
believe
that you're saying I'm doing this to grandstand.
Well, you are.
I am not.
You are. You wanted to term limit the county executive. You didn't get that. You turned around because Bernie stood up and said you should study the home rule charter. Hey, that's a great idea. Let's study the home rule charter. Let's throw out the baby with the bathwater and start all over again. The only thing you're going to do with a home rule charter study is go back to a 3-commissioner form of government. What are you going to change?
Well, I'm not going to change anything. It's going to be the commissioners who are going to run it.
Well, next year you'll probably be running for the home rule charter study. So, who knows? Who knows who's going to run? And to Peg's concern, you're going to have anybody run for this to tell us how to run the government. No background, no knowledge. We had judges. We had everybody on it the last time, 45 years ago, that knew what they were doing. You're opening it up to whoever wants to run.
By design.
That's democracy.
By design, if the government's faulty and you need it fixed, we need to fix the administrative code. But you have the power to fix the administrative code. Okay. You're the legislative branch of the government here.
All right.
No. Not really. But I'll defer to Mr. Geisinger.
Mr. Vaughn, you had that?
I actually was kind of apprehensive at first about this because I feel like we're kind of opening up a Pandora's box here with, what are we seeking to gain by doing this? I mean, what are we going to do with the answers that we get? What if they say we should just get rid of the Home Rule Charter and go back to the 3-commissioner style of government?
And elected row officers.
Then it would be voted on. If that's the recommendation, that would come back and be voted on.
Certainly. I'm just throwing ideas out here. I just want to throw that out, that these are the things that were running through my mind at the first onset of discussion. But the more I thought about it, we're not really bound by anything that they propose. So it's not like we need to do exactly what they do. And I don't see anything wrong with actually taking the time to do a thorough evaluation like Mr. Phillips said. One of the things that popped out in my mind was I think we should be called commissioners, quite frankly.
I agree.
And
I agree. 4 years ago.
Mr. Kraft thinks we should be called commissioners too. So maybe this study will suggest we become commissioners, and the rest of you guys will start to vote in favor of this like you didn't do last time I proposed it. But at any rate, I'm going to support this. I don't think that we're tied to anything that they say. If they come up with some radical ideas, we can certainly legislate that. And the only other question I had was, what if they are requesting solicitor's representation? Would Phil be available, or?
Well, again, as I had indicated, they would have to come back. Yeah, I believe that would be a conflict of interest.
Yeah, right.
But any request for personnel, they would have to approach us for a budget. So if they wanted to hire an attorney, they would have to make a proposal, and we would have to authorize the expenditure of funds.
John, do you know how much money it was the last time we had a Home Rule Charter study? 45 years ago?
I do not have that information. I couldn't
You
look it
think
up,
we should
though.
look into it before we decide to vote for a Home Rule Charter study?
I don't
Because
believe...
it's 2017 now.
I don't believe it will... I mean, again, I don't believe it will be that expensive, and we do have the ability to control that.
Yeah.
We can say no. We can say, no, you can't spend money on expensive consultants.
But the way it's written, if you're going to get anybody who can run, it's a popularity contest now. I mean, you see the people who, sometimes could be involved in this, and you're going to need some kind of guidance with some kind of professionals and some kind of really legal advice, because you're talking about taking apart something that's been here for 40 years that really isn't broke, except for people's position on term limits and things like that. If we're going to waste our time, how much money is it going to cost us?
Well, again, we will have the ability to...
I mean, how much money is going to cost a taxpayer? It's not going to cost us anything except for my little part of taxes.
Again, council has the ability to control how much money is spent by the elected commission. So it would be within our purview to say yes or no.
But you can't hamstring them so they can't do the job.
I'm sorry. If you will yield, thank you, Mr. President. My concern is that we're talking about engaging in an election of 9 individuals to work on a study for a document that, as Mr. Kraft pointed out, was crafted by a large group of people who had a particular budget. They had time. They had the world as it existed in the mid-1970s. And did they get it all right? I'm not saying they did. Are there changes that may be good and beneficial? Certainly. But without coming into it and saying, we're going to know, or at least have some ballpark, that if we engage an attorney on this group, if we engage other professionals on this group, if we have these people that are involved, these 9 individuals, with who knows what background they may have, it may be something where we want to say, this is going to at least be a cost of $500,000.
No,
$2
that's
million.
ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. I am throwing out a number, Mr. President, with all due respect. You're throwing out a number. You're talking about reorganizing the government in a way. We haven't even taken the time to do the study on the administrative code that we allocated money for.
And we're jumping in.
And now we're talking about the Home Rule Charter.
And all our problems lie with the administrative code. All of our arguments are administrative code problems.
Again,
I don't disagree that there are things that could be changed. And I certainly do not, in any way, shape, or form, attribute Mr. Phillips's agenda items or verbiage or desire to politics. I know his heart is in the right place. Mr. Kraft and I will not agree on that point. But I do agree with Mr. Kraft, and I can't believe I'm saying this the way I am, but I agree with Mr. Kraft on the fact that I don't think this is the proper step at this time.
Okay.
And
Mrs. Ferraro?
everyone knows, every time we've done a study, every time we've hired a solicitor to work with a group, there's no way this is going to come in under $300,000.
Well,
now, let's be realistic here. And I just don't feel the real need for that until we start looking at the administrative code. And I really think the way our controller is elected is great. He's the watchdog. He should be independent. I love having an appointed sheriff. It's just taken all the politics out of it, because I think we've gotten good quality people that I've seen.
And I agree, Peg, and my big thing about the Home Rule Charter was not having the sheriff from the county. That was our contention. We wanted, and that's not in the Home Rule Charter, but it's just, you know, there are little things that are wrong.
Right.
They can be tweaked one at a time if Mr. Phillips wants to show exactly what we need to change.
Yeah. I respect all your comments, and I understand them as well. But here are some of my thoughts. I went back, I looked at the minutes when this was brought up, I believe 12 years ago. And at that time, the arguments were very interesting, and the way that it broke down was certainly not partisan. It failed by a vote of 4 to 5. You had 2 Republicans, one very conservative, voting for the study, and you had 2 Democrats, well-known, respected members of this body that voted yes. So I think that if I look back to those people and how different they were, there were 4 good people that did feel at the time. It's been 12 years since then, and I think we owe it to ourselves to ask this question: is it working? Is it working? And for those of you who believe it is working, what is the harm in putting it on the ballot, and the voters can say, yes, it is. We do not want this. So if everything is wonderful, I would urge you to campaign during this process and say, vote no, we like the Home Rule Charter, and allow the people to weigh in. Again, it's been 40 years, and they can say, is it working? If they think it is working, well then, they can vote, not to approve this. And you could make the arguments about, how it's going to cost this, we may change this, but we could make that to the voters next year. So that would be my reason for that. And I think the other issue, and Mr. Phillips raised some specific, I'll raise a general one, and it really comes down to this. If, in fact, this would pass, I think people need to look and see, do they want a county executive and a council form of government, or do you want a council and a manager? That was one of the arguments that somebody was making 12 years ago. I think that's worth studying.
A full-time council?
Are we better off having a council and a county administrator? There are some counties that operate under that form of government. Is that more efficient? We had the folks here in the audience that came to us and said, well, how come you people don't know all this? Well, the reason we didn't know a lot of it was because all of it was under the purview of the executive. So what we know sometimes is limited by what information we get from the executive. If we had a council and a manager, well, the manager would work for us, and we would have the right. We could say, where's the information?
But then you don't have the 3 branches of government that this was designed to have.
Well, then again,
that's what we went to a Home Rule Charter for. We had that with 3 commissioners.
So the question that I would ask is, you don't live in a township, but in your township, you don't vote on your township manager. We have some terrific, well-paid township managers, more than we pay the county executive.
Well, that can be fixed in a Home Rule Charter study.
Your school board. You don't vote on who the school superintendent is. And I heard a complaint about, somebody may or may not be qualified. Well, if we had a council and a manager, well, you'd probably want to hire somebody with an MBA or an MPA, and you'd pay them a significant salary, and they would be qualified because, council would affirm that. And same thing with your school superintendent. They have to have their doctorate. They have to be qualified for the position. So I think that is a question that I would like to see considered. Do you like this form of government, or do you think the council manager form might be appropriate? I don't know, but those are things they might want to consider. And the other thing I heard that was kind of ridiculous is us saying, well, you know what, anybody can run. Well, that's democracy. Anybody that wants to run for this office or township supervisor, township auditor, if you're a citizen who's registered to vote and you live in the community, well, that's your right, unless you're running for a specific office that requires a qualification, like a judge or DA.
May I clarify?
Yes, Mrs. Ferraro.
I'd like to clarify that last statement that you just made about anybody being able to run. With all of us, we were all newbies at one time, and yes, there were other experienced people with whom we worked, and that we had our learning curve, probably a 2-year learning curve. If these folks are coming on as a study commission, they're jumping right into it. There is no learning curve. That's my argument, why I would hope that we would have people who had huge background in county government.
And I would urge those people to run.
Considering, this is we're a lame duck council, I'd like to make a motion that we table this till next year. As soon as the election's over, we can bring it up again, because it's not going to go anywhere till next November. And maybe we can get the answers to how much money we think we're going to spend, and if there's going to be qualifiers for people or not. That's a couple things we need to hash out before we push this forward. So I'd like to make a motion that we table it till next, January.
We have a motion to table. A motion to table and seconded by Mr. Geisinger. Those are non-debatable motions. Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
No.
Mr. Dietz?
No.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
No.
Mr. Vaughn?
No.
And Mr. Warner?
No.
Fails by a vote of 4 to 5.
So motion to table fails. Any further discussion on as amended, Mr. Bennell? And then Mr. Vaughn.
I just had one quick question, and I know we were discussing it it came up in governance. The original commission was 11, and the new commission will be of 9.
Yeah.
I'm just curious where the number difference.
I believe that within the law, the chart or the statute gives you 3 options. You can either have 7, 9, or 11. And I think that you chose 9 because it's in the middle, or
yeah. If the desire was to go to 11, I'd probably be okay with that. I think that it was because it was in the middle.
Okay. I was just a curiosity question, and just so I can weigh in, because I am outgoing no matter what. I agree with Mr. Kraft's concern. I don't think it's more of a political stunt. And I will say that about Mr. Phillips. I think this is, I've brought up my question since the beginning. Everybody knows my issues with what kind of got this started too. But I do agree with what Mr. Kraft and Mr. Geisinger tried to do. The next council, whether it passes tonight or it waits until the first meeting in January, it doesn't do anything. And the next council is probably going to have the same headaches that we have. But I think it doesn't hurt to have a study. I think it's a good idea. Again, it's up to the next council when this gets approved, if it gets approved by the electorate, to decide if we want to take a study. And then there's no guarantee that what the study says is something that council is going to act on. So, again, I think it just puts it back into the hands of the taxpayers, and it's up to us as the political bodies to get it out there to the public to say if there is an interest, and to address Ms. Ferraro's concerns. I think if you're going to have to go out and get 200 signatures to get on the ballot, you're probably going to be somebody who's familiar with it. I would hope that you'd be familiar with it. I would hope that people like Mr. Siegfried, like Frank Flisher would be the ones that, you know, if they don't want to go out and knock doors, people like us that know their expertise will go out there and get petitions signed for them. Those are the people that I would want on there. But again, I think it's just another reason to get people active, and it gives the taxpayer a say in how the government's run.
And I'll tell you, if Frank wants to run, I'll circulate his petition. So.
And Judge Grant.
Any further discussion on this? There being none, Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
I'll vote last.
Mr. Geisinger?
No.
Mr. Kraft?
No.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
And Mrs. Ferraro?
No.
Passes by a vote of 6-3.
Passes by a vote of 6-3. Okay. Thank you. That was good discussion. That's democracy. I like that. Okay. So then the next item is public hearing on the ordinance entitled "An Ordinance Providing for an Amendment to the Northampton County Home Rule Charter, Article 7, Finance." This ordinance was introduced by Mr. Dietz and Mr. Phillips at the October 5th meeting. Public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at this meeting. So at this time, I need to conduct the public hearing. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address this ordinance? There being none, Mr. Phillips, you had...
Yes. There was some questions, and I think Phil will talk about them during his Solicitor's Report. The bottom line is I'm looking I'm making a motion to table it.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Phillips, seconded by Mr. Geisinger to table the ordinance. Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
No.
And Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 8-1.
Tabled by a vote of 8-1. That was all we had under old business. Is there any other old business that anybody would like to bring up at this time? I have one thing, and I see Mr. Hurlinger is here. I believe it was 5 years ago, this council voted, and some of you are still here, to make a Keystone Opportunity Zone at the Dixie Cup. And I saw a news story recently that there's been no progress, and some of the residents of Wilson Borough.
You're right. We did do that about 5 years ago.
Yeah, and I saw there was a meeting, and it was in the news that some of the residents of Wilson Borough had some issues, were complaining because there's been no movement. And it's my understanding that a Keystone Opportunity Zone is finite in the amount of time for which there's an opportunity. So I guess I would just ask if the administration could maybe reach out to either the borough and or the property owner and see if there's anything we can do to move the process along, because I remember back then there seemed to be at that time we seemed to sense there was a willingness to do something, and now 5 years later, and there's just a meeting with people complaining that nothing's been done.
John, I can kind of enlighten it. Being in the building trades, there's been many plans floated for that building to turn it into condos and all, but the market for apartments like that wasn't up. But now it's really booming. They're looking for places. So you may see some movement from the people that gave plans, because I know there's prices put in for glazing and all kind of things. So we may see something come soon, hopefully. If you've been talking to anybody, but hopefully it'll happen. So something will happen to that place. It'll stop being empty.
Well, that would be great, because it seemed like 5 years ago that there was a plan, and
because there's a remediation that has to be done.
Yeah, there's asbestos,
things.
and I was wondering if there was any grants or something we could do, because it seems like the property owner doesn't have the means to remediate or do some of the necessary things. So, if you can just look into that, we'd appreciate it. Any other old business? Okay, then we'll move into new business. First item is the consideration of personnel requests. Court administration, domestic relations section. This resolution was discussed yesterday at the Personnel Committee, and I'll call on Mr. Bennell to introduce the resolution.
It is hereby resolved by the Northampton County Council that the one part-time position of clerical technician 2, pay grade CN 131-A, salary $25,631, and the full-time positions of intake technician 1, pay grade CN 158-8H, salary $38,248. Office supervisor, pay grade CS 19-2-B, salary $40,798. Support services supervisor, pay grade CS 20, 6-F, salary $50,949. Conference officer 2, pay grade CP 24, 3-C, salary $48,858. Conference officer 2, pay grade CP 248-H, salary $60,474. Conference officer 1, pay grade CP 22-5-E, salary $48,671. Conference officer 1, pay grade CP 22-9-1, salary $57,450. And support technician 2, pay grade CN 16-4-D, salary $33,584, shall be eliminated in court administration domestic relations section effective October 19, 2017. It is further hereby resolved that the full-time positions of support technician 1, pay grade CN 15-8-H, salary $38,248, office supervisor, pay grade CS 22-B, salary $42,724, support services supervisor, pay grade CS 21 6-F, salary $53,346. Conference officer 2, pay grade CP 25 3-C, salary $51,083. Conference officer 2, pay grade CP 25 8-H, salary $63,243. Conference officer 2, pay grade CP 25 3-C, salary $51,083. Conference officer 2, pay grade CP 25 7-G, salary $60,592. And clerical specialist, pay grade CN 17 4-D, salary $35,167, shall be created in court administration domestic relations section effective October 19, 2017.
Okay. Again, these were discussed and recommended by the Personnel Committee yesterday. Our court administrator, Mr. Green, is here. I don't know if he would want to add anything or if anybody had any questions, but I think it was discussed at length. Did you want to say anything about it, or no? Okay. Any questions or concerns? So, yeah.
I heard enough yesterday.
Yeah, we covered it yesterday. So with that, Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
And Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9-0.
Passes unanimously by a vote of 9-0. Next item is a consideration of the amended Recorder of Deeds fee schedule, and I'll call on Mr. Geisinger to introduce this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. President. Whereas the Northampton County Council Ordinance Number 17-1979 provides that the council shall set fees charged by various county agencies by means of resolution, and now therefore be resolved by Northampton County Council that the fee schedule for the Recorder of Deeds office shall be amended to read as indicated on the attached documentation. The revised fees shall take effect October 26, 2017. We discussed this at the Finance Committee meeting yesterday, Mr. President, and essentially it's because of a change in the way that the state is administering its fee for notary bonds and commissions. The county is adjusting its fee $2 down in order to accommodate that, because the state is now charging that, and that is the only change to the fee schedule.
Okay. Again, this was discussed yesterday and recommended by the Finance Committee. Any further discussion? Ms. Zembo, can we call the vote?
Mr. Geisinger?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Vaughn?
Yes.
Mr. Warner?
Yes.
Mr. Bennell?
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic?
Yes.
Mr. Dees?
Yes.
Mrs. Ferraro?
Yes.
And Mr. Kraft?
Yes.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0.
Passes by a vote of 9 to 0. Next item under new business is the introduction of an ordinance titled, An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council authorizing the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease approximately 3,280 square feet of office space identified as 269 Blue Valley Drive, Bangor, Pennsylvania, from United Hoisting Company, Inc., Long Island City, New York, District Court Number 03-3-03. At this time, I would need two people to co-sponsor the ordinance. Mr. Geisinger and Mr. Bennell will be co-sponsoring the ordinance. Then the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the November 2nd, 2017 meeting. Okay. Next item is the introduction of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council authorizing the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease approximately 3,500 square feet of office space identified as 400 Northampton Street, Suite 100, Easton, Pennsylvania, from 400 Northampton LP, Easton, Pennsylvania, District Court Number 03-2-05. And at this time, I would need two sponsors for the ordinance. Mr. Bennell and Mr. Geisinger will be co-sponsoring. Then the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the November 2nd, 2017 meeting. Next item is the introduction of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council authorizing the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease approximately 2,100 square feet of office space identified as St. John Street and Pennsylvania Pike, Suite Number 700C and 700D, Easton, Pennsylvania, from NIDI Group LLC, TA Plaza at Crossroads, Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania, District Court Number 03-2-06. Again, I would need two sponsors. Again, Mr. Geisinger and Mr. Werner wants to co-sponsor this one. Item 4. Then the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the November 2nd meeting. Item 6 under new business is the introduction of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council authorize the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease approximately 2,773 square feet of office space identified as 3 Weller Court, Easton, Pennsylvania, from the Township of Palmer, Northampton County, Pennsylvania. That's District Court Number 03-2-09. Mr. Werner and Mr. Geisinger will co-sponsor that ordinance. Then the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the November 2nd, 2017 meeting. Next item under new business is the introduction of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council authorizing the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease approximately 2,847 square feet of office space identified as 3rd and Polk Building, 322 East 3rd Street, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, from Polk Street Development Associates, LP, and Polk Street Development Group, Inc. That is District Court Number 03-2-10, and Mr. Bennell and Mr. Geisinger will be co-sponsoring. Mr. Kraft? Mr. Geisinger and Mr. Kraft will be co-sponsoring that ordinance. Then the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the November 2nd, 2017 meeting. Item number 7 under new business, the introduction of an ordinance entitled, An Ordinance of the Northampton County Council authorizing the County of Northampton, Easton, Pennsylvania, to lease approximately 2,650 square feet of office space identified as 1710 Butler Street, Easton, Pennsylvania, from James S. Garofalo, Easton, Pennsylvania. That is District Court Number 03-2-12. And again, I would need two co-sponsors. Mr. Werner and Mr. Bennell will be co-sponsoring. Then the public hearing, debate, and possible vote will be held at the November 2nd, 2017 meeting. And that was all we had under new business. Is there any other new business that anyone would like to discuss? Mr. Bennell?
Mr. Green, if I may, at yesterday's meeting when we were discussing these leases, it was a little concerning about the security issue that was brought up. So my opinion, I would ask that maybe that gets something that gets looked into to see how we can better protect our magistrates. Okay.
Mr. Kraft, you had a question?
My question is...
Green, could you come up to the microphone so we're not...
Thank you, Counsel. You know, you're familiar with Lehigh County and how they do it with the magistrates? With the central booking and the central court where one magistrate goes there one day a week and they switch off and they do all their things in the security of the courthouse?
Rotate, yes.
And this issue isn't an issue? I've asked before many times, why doesn't Northampton County do that? Because when there's a criminal, and say he's from the Netherlands in the northern region, like I call Utopia, sorry, Bob, right. And you have to take, assistant DA, you have to take a constable, you have to take the defendant up there, you have to take your solicitor up there, you have to take everybody up there. What does that cost every time we do a trip when the way Lehigh County does it, it doesn't matter who's booking. The magistrate comes in here to our courthouse. The prisoner is brought right over from the prison and walked right in. You got the stenographer. You have everybody on hand right there in the courtroom, same people familiar, and you're not spending any money to send people remotely everywhere and spend all this money. Why don't we model that?
There's different ways to do things, and I know Allegheny County does it that way as well, and there's a lot of complaints in Allegheny County because they're right in Pittsburgh and everybody is there.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about Pittsburgh. I'm talking about Lehigh County, Northampton County, similar.
Yeah,
We're
it's
similar.
I'm not really familiar how Lehigh County does that, but I know.
See, because nobody has to run here. Everybody's here. The DA goes down a couple stairs. The solicitor comes up a couple stairs. They're coming right over there from the prison. If we had a tunnel, they could come right over underneath and up.
If we build a prison somewhere else that's not here, we're going to have a big problem.
Well, that's a whole different... don't bring that up. Come on. It's been calm tonight, all right?
Okay.
Jeez. So, I've attended their court.
Okay.
I've sat in it all day long, and it works
have to do that,
pretty darn good. I mean, it's got to save a ton of money. Because when we had that guy who crashed that car on Willow Park Road and killed those 3 people,
right.
You should have seen all the people that were there from the county for that one case. Now, how much money did that cost us? The coroner was there. Everybody was there.
I'm not sure, but what I'll do, I will contact Kerry Toter, who's my counterpart in Lehigh County. I'll go observe it and see if that's something that can work.
Okay, because I imagine you have to hire a stenographer for each one of the magistrates. You have to hire, everybody. It just seems
that's
like
the attorneys for the magistrate.
Right. It just seems like we're tripping over, nickels to save 50s. So yeah.
I understand, but I will do that. I'll look into that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
One of the issues that's come up from time, since Mr. Kraft raised that, was night court. Is that something we've thought about ever doing here?
We have night duty with the magistrates. The magistrates, they rotate on night duty. But you mean night court for the common police court?
No, yeah, just like a... Well, I think maybe
You're talking about like Bull coming up and hitting the gavel?
No, I mean for could the magistrates rotate through or something, or do you have them on call now?
Yeah, they're on call, and they can do video court in their homes, so they're accessible, and they go through a rotation. So.
Yeah, but that's just an issue that's been raised from time to time on this council. I was just wondering if it's something that's ever come up or you've thought about.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, okay.
Just the night duty.
Okay, and if Bull is available, we'll hire him.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Anything else for Mr. Green this evening?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council. I just want to say thank you for showing your support, and on behalf of the court and the employees of domestic relations, thank you. They really deserve it. They work hard there, and we just need to do those upgrades to keep pace with what the state is expecting. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
And then thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right. Any other new business coming before council? There being none, we'll move into committee reports. Any committee reports? Mr. Phillips?
Yeah, we didn't have the projects committee. Stan had something that he got called away with, but as part of the budget review for capital projects, it's going to get a real thorough review them again. So I think we're in good shape there in regards to accountability.
Okay. Will you be having a meeting next month, or will you just cancel that because of the
I'm thinking we're going to cancel it because of
the budget?
Yeah.
Any other committee reports? Mrs. Ferraro?
Just a reminder that our November Economic Development Committee meeting, yes, we do have to have some housekeeping as far as SIP is concerned. And Upper Mount Bethel wants to come in for a maximum of 10 minutes to discuss the LERTA that's being proposed. But the majority of the meeting, at least, and I'm hoping at least 1 hour, is going to be devoted to Da Vinci, that people are coming in from San Francisco to speak. So I think it's important that we give them as much time, at least an hour, and I hope we have a good attendance at our Economic Development Committee meeting. Thank you.
That's November 2nd at 5 o'clock.
November 2nd, 5 o'clock, and we'll start right on time.
Any other committee liaison? Any liaison reports?
Just one, John.
Mr. Werner?
I'm going to enter this into the records. I'll give a copy to Linda. The Auditor General has responded to us and said that he's released an 80-page report titled State of the Child that addresses Kevin Dolan's concerns that was here in front of us. And among the issues highlighted was the need for high-level reviews of using the State Civil Service Commission to hire children and youth workers, and the burdensome, redundant paperwork that case workers most complete, which keeps them from spending enough time in the field. So they've addressed 2 out of the 3 concerns that Kevin had. He's also, Eugene D. Pasquale has said he was meeting this month with the board members of the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania and the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Children and Youth Administrators to how to push for implementation of 17 recommendations for the State of the Child report that will definitely affect and specifically address the aforementioned issues that were raised in Northampton County. He said he will continue to work on behalf of the at-risk children, and if we have any questions, we are to call him. That's for the record.
Any other liaison? Council Clerk?
Just that the next budget hearing is October 26th at 4:30.
And we will be, the courts will be here.
911.
The 911 and emergency management will be here. And farmland will be here as well. So, Solicitors Report.
I was asked by several council members to look into an issue relating to whether or not you as the council have the authority to impose any kind of additional requirements on bond issues, particularly in cases where we would be in a situation where the county is taking on new bond issue debt for the development of an enterprise, and that private enterprise benefits from it but doesn't really help the county pay the debt as it's created. So the question was whether there is any way that that type of debt can be presented to the voters. And we did, I did a letter which all of you have now received indicating that you have that authority. You have the authority, obviously, to create indebtedness, and in the Act which provides for that, there's a specific provision that the Home Rule Charter of a county may establish limitations pertaining to incurring debts without the approval of electors, which are more restrictive than the provisions contained in Section 8022, which is the normal section. So you do have the right to create that kind of requirement. However, after the ordinance that was now tabled was created and circulated, questions began coming in specifically from the GPA expressing some concerns about what that might do to their ability to help entities which need help. So What I did is I put together a letter addressed to the solicitor for the GPA, and there's a similar letter that will be going out to solicitors for other entities which might be involved in creating the same kind of debt. And so I've done that. I haven't obviously begun receiving responses, but as I do, I will provide them to council.
Okay. Any questions for the solicitor? I just had one quick thing. I got a call asking whether or not council would be involved in any litigation over the opioid issue. And, it's long been my understanding that that would be either the purview of the executive or the district attorney. Can you just...
Yeah, well, I mean, representation of the county in any litigation is part of the administration and their solicitor. The only times that we've gotten involved in litigation, as you'll recall, is when we've had, if you will, a difference of opinion with the administration. That's the time we usually end up in the litigation. So any litigation would be undertaken by the DA or the county solicitor.
Okay. Anything else? Any thing for the good of the order at this time? We have a motion to adjourn, moved by Mr. Bennell, seconded by Mr. Kraft. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening, everyone.
A lot of fun. Never heard of it until tonight. Because he sits on the prison advisory.